So welcome if you're new. This is Around the World in 80 Trees. This is that Asia part 2. I had to break Asia up into 2 parts. And I'm Roseanne Hanson with my own Field Arts Institute. And I'm also involved with the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference as one of the organizers and co-founder of the Wild Wonder Foundation. So I'm going to get going because I've got 8 species to go through today. And the way I do my species is on a little accordion. You can do yours any way you want. And then I paste mine then into my journal, which is kind of fun. And so, well, here we go. I'm going to get started sharing my screen. So we're going to get started here. All right, you guys should be seeing the first slide in the slideshow. Are we good? Yes. If you don't see the first slide in the slideshow, then somebody let me know, but otherwise I'll assume we're good. It should say Around the World in 80 Trees. And as I said, I'm Roseanne Hanson, Exploring Overland Field Arts Institute and the author of Nature Journaling for a Wildlife and the Master of Field Arts. So there was part 1. As you can see, it's just such a huge Asia, such a huge continent. So today we're doing part 2, another huge area. So you can split up your map any way you want. And of course, I'll have all of these resources will be on the website. So don't feel like you have to rush and copy things really quickly. So we are starting in the Himalayas with this beautiful tree. Look at the shape of that. And those cones are just stunning. They're actually very collectible. People love them because they look like big open roses. This is the Himalayan cedar. And it is native to the Himalayas. And a common name for it is deodar, Cedrus theodora, which comes from the Sanskrit word, which sounds similar, Devadaru. And it means wood of the gods. It's a tall tree, 130 to maybe 160 feet. And the branches go out level, but then the branchlets droop. And I think that gives it a beautiful look. And it's a popular building material as well as in Ayurvedic medicine. So the wood is aromatic, makes incense, essential oil. And then it does a lot of interesting things. People there in Asia use it to build rooms to store food because it's antifungal and also repels insects. So I think this is a really interesting tree. And let's get going drawing it. The cones are also really interesting in that they're almost roundy. So what I need to do is not do that. There we go. So you should be seeing my double screen here where I'm going to start my work. Okay, so I think, as I always do, I like to draw the shape of the tree first, and I'm going to index it because it's really broad at the bottom. So I want to make sure I leave enough space. So I'm like making little dots of where I'm going to make the top and the bottom. It's really quite broad. So as we saw, I think I'm going to just give myself some little straight branches. They appear to be slightly offset, if not opposite. And this is just so we get that droop right. And you can barely see that because I'm not pushing very hard on my pen. So then I'm going to take my pen here and get the lovely droops. And it's probably going to take me a few passes to get this exactly the way I want it. And I'll fill in with color. We'll make it go a little more quickly, but this is to get our fill in the shapes. Looks like there's some nice gaps between, and as always, when doing these, you don't want to get lost in the details here. We want to get the basic shapes. But I'm not going to be drawing every pine needle, cedar needle, because that I would be here all day doing one. I'm going to use the color to fill in the details. It looks like this guy goes all the way to the ground. And I'm going to kind of hold that as my, give you a little bit more detail there. I'm going to hold that for the color. And then I'm going to do this beautiful cone. And again, we're doing quick captures here. So we want to not spend a ton of time on every single detail. And that's really hard. So you're going to try to get this cone as quickly as possible, getting that interior rosette with little crescents. Keeping it pretty round. And then I'm going to start going out and getting those they're open. And they overlap just a tiny bit. Lovely cone. And these cones are almost as wide as they are tall when they open up to disperse the seeds. Beautiful. So we want to say, so this is the cone, and it's roughly, it says 7 to 13 centimeters. I would call it tall. That says long. I'm going to say tall. And then it's pretty broad. So, that's a big cone, 9 centimeters. And then this tree, remember we like to include a scale. And it's about, we'll say it's, let's call this specimen about 150 feet, or you can use meters depending on where you are. I've mixed meters and metric and imperial, so that's all right. But I like that. And I might, I can go in after I add color and add some more of the detail if I want later, but let's drop in some color. That's going to be fun. So I want a really nice piney green. Let me clean out that yellow there. So I'm going to start with my triad, my manganese blue, quinacridone rose, and cobalt aureolin yellow. And then I have my dirty yellow, my burnt sienna, and my indanthrone blue. So adding some of the manganese blue for a brighter green. I need to refill that. And we're going to have several shades of green here. So I'm going to go with this, filling in with the lighter first. Always do your lights first. And try to maintain the openness here. Oops, which I didn't do there. So you just saw why I like lifting colors. When you make a mistake, you can go in quickly and lift that out. And then I'm going to darken this up with a little dark blue and get some of those darks in here while it's still kind of wet. So it's lighter on the top, darker on the bottom. And after that dries, I can improve the detail with the pen work a little bit. Now we're going to want to do the tone there. Oops. So what I'm going to do is a very, very light yellow with a teeny bit of the burnt sienna to give it that kind of goldeny color. That turned a little green. Must have not cleaned that off well enough. There we go. So I'm going to wash the whole thing in that goldeny color. And then that, burnt sienna is going to make a really nice accent color to get that woody look. You can see it blooming. I'm going to leave that because I like that. And then remember that burnt sienna and the dark blue makes a quick, very, very dark, which I'm going to dab just a teeny, teeny bit in the middle and let that dry. Oh, good. See, this was a good fast one. As this dries, I can go in also and improve some of the dark. See, it's still too wet. This is 130-pound paper, so it's going to take a while to dry. So I can go in and add more detail later. But we're going to move on right now because I'm trying to do I'm going to do 8 trees today. So who's our next tree? Where are we going? Well, this way we're going to drop back down into India for another really interesting species. This is the species, some of you, when you were here earlier, I was talking about this species has caused a lot of confusion. So look at that gorgeous seed, and the flowers are beautiful. And this is the Philippine mahogany, Shorea species. And the reason I didn't go down to individual species from the genus level is it's really interesting genus wide. So it is a rainforest genus native to Southeast Asia. And almost all of the 196 species are critically endangered. 91 of them are endemic to Borneo. And so it's just a really interesting species. About 80 to 90 meters tall, so pretty tall tree. And it produces a resin called damar, which is a Malay word. And that's used in has been used in varnishes, caulking ships back in the wooden ship days. It's still used as a medium for mounting biological specimens and in an encaustic wax art. The flowering is thought to be triggered by droughts that occur during those transition years of La Nina to El Nino. So I'm kind of thinking we're experiencing that now, and I can't remember which cycle we're in, And then the seeds are beautiful, winged, and really, really colorful. And what it gets confused with is something called Corupita ghayanensis. And that's native to South America, and it's become an invasive in Asia. And it's called the cannonball tree. But people often confuse it with Shorea and think that the resin comes from the balls, but it doesn't. The cannonball tree has big round seed pods that fall and hit people. That's why they call it the cannonball tree. But that's not what this is. And right now I am concerned. Okay, because this is what happened. Someone shared this Shorea species and a picture showing the cannonball tree. It's saying, oh, this is where the Damar resin comes from. So I kind of went with that. And then I realized I had fallen prey to the internet sharing wrong information, as did the person who shared it with me. I'm not positive that that flower now, I forgot to go in and double check, is the Shorea flower. So we're going to put a question mark there. But this is definitely the mahogany tree and the mahogany seed, which is really beautiful. And it's not a true mahogany. So we want to get that down. So interesting how we learn to research and acknowledge that the internet has a lot of wrong information. You have to double check everything really carefully. I'm just cleaning up the edge there a little bit. Okay, that looks nice. Now I'm going to work on the Luan or Philippine mahogany, not a true mahogany. Oh, and I forgot to add some more written details. So I would want to go back and write a little bit more about the natural history of this species, which I'll do that on this one. So don't forget to do that, definitely. I'm talking and drawing and painting. I sometimes forget the little details like that. So, okay, so, you're seeing the next one. I have to cover it up. So to save time, I put the names down. So let's get the shape of that really beautiful tall mahogany. I'm going to put it on this side here. So it's got a thinner central trunk. And looks like the branches come up very diagonal rather than straight out like the deodar. It looks like I got some spurious ink there, so I'll use it as a design element. And remember, we're just wanting to get the essence of this lovely tree. I'm leaving spots for this is great. My ink blob that I accidentally transferred from here is going to end up being a nice leaf cluster. So I'm just very roughly reminding myself that we've got leaf clusters in here that I'm going to ink in. And it's a fairly feathery open canopy, isn't it? What I would just want to do is get the essence of this pretty tree. And give me time to sketch the seed. Now I'm going back over and making it a little darker after I was sure I was happy with the proportions. Remember to check your proportions first so you don't end up with the wrong proportions and end up with a funky thing going on. So this is our scale here. This is I'm going to use the meters because I can't remember how to translate that. It's 150 or so, 160 feet, but what did it say? It's about 80 to 90 meters tall. No, that's even taller. That's really tall. I should have been consistent. So this is a rainforest species. That photo obviously is from appears to be a clear cut, right? And then the really cool seed pod. Let's zoom in on that. I'm going to spend most of my time on that because I need to go back and research that. If anyone has a moment you want to research, let's make sure that Shorea species flowers look like that. So I don't make an error. I apologize for that. But I said like that seed, which is definitely a Shorea seed. That is just super cool. So I'm going to put it in here diagonally.
I search it, and the flowers are from the cannonball tree.
Aha. Okay, I'm going back here. Ready? We're deleting that.
And I put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
With a photo which shows something more like the seed pod you have there.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. Now we see, why we check our research. And I discovered that this morning when I was double checking everything. I realized, oh no, that is wrong information. So excellent. I mean, I don't, it's just part of what we do as naturalists. We're learning and making sure that we're getting our facts right. But because at least one or two websites had the wrong information, it's now promulgated around the internet. Ha. Or propagated, I should say, is the right word. That's a beautiful color, isn't it? Oh, sorry, I've been blocking the view. Let's turn it. I'm letting my pen skip over the rough paper so it gives it a texture to help approximate those interesting veins. There we go. Focus. There we go. Much better. Let's get some color in here. That's going to be fun. Okay.
What does a leaf look like? Is it sort of traditional triangular kind of leaf?
Yeah, we need to research that because like I said, this was like an oh my God moment where it's like, this is the wrong species. It was actually really hard to find good information on this Shorea species. Believe it or not. I mean, I found a lot of studies and the fact of being endangered, but in terms of just leaf structure, etc. Remember, this is a genus we're working off more or less here because again, it was hard to find individual good and for individual species information, and I wanted to kind of stay at that genus level because of the endangered. It's good to see, wow, at a huge level, this tree from rainforest clearing is getting it's having a really hard time. I mean, the genus is having a really, really hard time. So we want to, I'm going to do the tree first so it can start drawing. And I just want to put, I want more yellow. I want to show that kind of, the more open leaf, looks like leaf clusters. And if we have time at the end, we'll go try to grab some more details on that. Just a good lesson in, research. And again, that, this tree should not be like standing alone in a field, I don't think. This is a rainforest tree. So it should be with many other tall trees and understories, etc. This gives us a look at what it should look like. And then I'm going to come in with some just slightly different green color as soon as that dries a little more. And I'm going to grab some of this nice bright green for this too. And there's just a tiny bit of the green showing through here. So what I'm trying to do with the darker color is just give a definition, right? The sun's shining on top. You want some shadows underneath the bright green. Gives it a little more definition. That will dry a lot lighter. And let's, oops. Oh, keep doing that. Let's put it just a little bit of, start with a light brown, then I can darken it. Be careful not to touch the green. Unfortunately, it probably shouldn't have dried grass under it. It should be in the rainforest, but I just killed my green, so. Now, we want that really cool orange, bright orange. It's got a lot of red undertones. So actually, I think what I'm going to do is do a wash of the quinacridone rose, leaving just some of this green peeking through, but see how it's already turning nicely orangey. But because I'm going to do a wash, I think it'll be much brighter. Or you might have in your palette, like a really nice bright orange. I'm trying to remember what that bright orange from who makes that really amazing bright orange? I have some somewhere. right, so now I'm going to make a little bit more orangey. This would probably be better if I let it dry first, but I'm gonna push it here. I think this is gonna benefit from is another wash after of the bright magenta. Yeah, I think that's gonna be nice. It's bleeding a little bit. And when that's dry, I can go in and add some shadows, little bit of definition. To make it more, make sure we have a sphere looking. And let's let that one dry and move on to the next one. But before I do that, I also need to look up about how big these are. I'm estimating maybe 3 or 4 centimeters, maybe 5. Not sure. I got some outside of the line here. I want to pull that off. I can turn that into a shadow after, and that'll fix it. There. After that dries, it'll make a nice shadow. So we've got, this is Shorea, genus is highly endangered. Native to Southeast Asia. This heavier weight paper is really textured, so it's not as smooth for writing. It's always a trade-off. Takes watercolor really well, but it's a little nubbly. And let's see, seeds are, oh, flowering. Possibly triggered. Or tuned to, we'll say. El Nino. La Nina. So I'm going to come in. Oh, that really bled. Look at that. I'm going to come in. I'll turn that into a shadow so I can salvage my bleed there. And then I can come back and pop this orange color even more. So we can move on to the next one. Which, and now I see if I pre-write my species, it's not a surprise anymore. Okay, so moving on. We are now heading down into China and a very famous tree, the ginkgo, which is really cool. I really had a fun experimenting this one and going down some rabbit holes. Ginkgo balboa, it's a living fossil. It is the only species in the genus left alive, growing today. They first appeared in the Permian, which is a long time ago. And the ginkgos and cycads are thought to be incredibly old, diverging as early as the Carboniferous. And both are gametophytes, is how they reproduce, and have motile sperm that reproduce by mitosis. Very interesting. They are dioecious, so male and female plants. The pollen is windborne, so the male cones conelet thingies throw out the pollen, which hit the female sex organs, and that's how they're pollinated. But they can also reproduce asexually. They put down long woody structures under their branches that get into the earth, and then those start producing leaves and grow into other trees. And they're really tall and wide. Well, excuse me, they're really wide. So about as wide as they are tall. So about 33 feet, 10 meters. So really fun. Obviously the ginkgo leaf, we all know, is kind of iconic. So I kind of want to draw that. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. And they turn beautiful golden color in the fall. So the leaf here on the left is the spring color. But first, I want to get the shape of the ginkgo, and I'm going to go ahead and do the fall color. So we'll get two different color phases. So we want to make sure we show how wide they are. So what I like to do is kind of give me my context to stay within. And so you can see, if we go back, big trunks at the bottom with some really interesting textury bark. I'll approximate that here. But what I really want to do is just capture that these branch sets. Again, I'm using just really light scratches with my pen to give me that shape. The leaves really cover each branch and branchlet. And we'll try to show that with the colors. So I'm just really scratching this in because I'm going to go in with the color and give it more of the definition. And then the beautiful leaf. I love the shape on the upper left the best. Oh, excuse me, the upper right. So I want to kind of hopefully get this. I didn't usually I go in really light before. So I just went for it with full ink. So we'll see if I get it right. And I think one of the main features are these beautiful ribs. Going kind of fast, but if you can take your time and get those lovely ribs. I'm gonna go even fainter on the bottom so we can get in there and show that lovely shape. So let's not forget, let's see, this is about, we're gonna say about 30 feet. Ooh, golly, look at that. Squiggly line. Oh. So native to the region that is now China. And it is the only species left in the family. And it dates to the Carboniferous is when it's speciated out, apparently. Got to get that focus going again. If the focus goes, let me know. It's a little better. So now I want to fill in my yellows and light greens. Let's get rid of. Really pretty golden color, isn't it? So I'm going to do some just pure yellow, and then on top, I'm going to put more of the golden. And trying to maintain that feeling of the leaves along the branches. Kind of blobbing.
The shape of this one, of this ginkgo, is really unusual for me because we have ginkgos all around the city of Vancouver, and they almost look uniform. Like this one's really creative and all over the place. So
Yeah,
I guess I'm thinking it must be really old, this tree.
possibly that. Also, if you've got trees that are maintained by a horticultural department, then they're going to be pruning them. And maybe this one is a little wilder.
And older.
And older. If we look at, that's a good point. These all have that, the kind of the branches go straight up, but some of them can get scraggly like this one. But these look like they are highly maintained.
Yeah.
So if you look in lots of different photos, which I did, I tried to find one that looked less like some guy with a pruning shears was at it all the time. Because they are, they all are all over the world planted as a ornamental. I'm putting just a tiny bit of it. We still have some green leaves on this one. And now I want to get some golden yellow. Oh, I should have used that green on the leaf, but oh well, I can always make more. And the way I make golden is just to put a tiny dab of burnt sienna with my yellow, and it kind of honeys it up.
There's only one species, but there's a lot of seedling variation within the species, and ginkgo is very popular for bonsai, and they're reducing the leaves, so they have some miniaturized ginkgos now with tiny little leaves.
Oh, how fun. Oh, wow. Well, I imagine in the cultivated world, yeah, there's going to be a lot of variation. Once we start selecting, humans are selecting, then it's going to change. Fun. So if you do a version of a ginkgo that you know from your neighborhood, that would be fun.
Thanks for that. I never really thought about the cultivation side of it.
Yeah, it's there's I'll tell a funny story if I can talk and paint at the same time. There's a bush in the desert called the creosote. Many of you probably know. And up the road from us is this housing development whose landscaper has turned the creosote into topiaries. They have browned balls. They've tortured the poor creosote into a completely unnatural shape. I apologize to the creosote every time I pass. Now let's play with this gorgeous leaf. Whew. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with glazing, which means I'm going to lay down yellow, let it dry, and come back and glaze over with manganese blue, which should give me a really nice bright green. And then I'll add the shadows last, once it's dried, with a dull green. But I really need to let this dry to get that effect. If you don't know what glazing is, it's one of the things that watercolor does so beautifully. So that will hopefully let me get that really nice bright color. Now, this is also the color, of the leaf in the fall, but I want to try to get that beautiful bright green. But we'll come back to that. Okay. Now where are we going? So here we are heading back up, still kind of in the China and toward eastern side of Asia, Western. And up in the high mountains, this beautiful tree rhododendron. I just love this. And I think we all probably grew up. My mom cultivated rhododendrons. It's a popular house plant. But this is a native to Southwest Asia and the state tree of Uttarakhand, India, about 60 feet tall, but more commonly about 40 feet and maybe very broad. The one I found the photo of is probably atypical. It looked like it kind of broke out of a canopy there, but it's easier to see it. Looks like the one at the top with the Himalaya peak in the background is probably more typical, and you can see how the leaves create a really pretty, almost like a little pedestal for the beautiful flowers, which is what we're going to want to draw. So the leaves are big, about 3 to 7 inches long, and they're hairy underneath. And those flowers come out in the spring with big kind of groups in these lovely pedestals. Wasn't able to find a good photo of what this said. It has, they have black nectar pouches and black spots inside. And I wasn't able to find a really good picture of that. So, well, we can't draw everything. Oops. So let's get this down. So you can see these colors are starting to pop. If I want to make it more bright yellow, I can add some pure yellow on top. This is still too wet to do anything with. So we want to kind of I just want to get a shape of the tree here. And that's a tall specimen. We'll modify it just a little bit with kind of a round crown. I wonder if this one was maybe browsed or trimmed in some way by livestock. I'm not sure. Has multiple trunks and branches coming up. And then they're all really diagonal. Trying to show kind of more of the shape of what those leaves would look like. So I'm drawing a slightly smaller version than the one in the picture. Again, I want to show the shapes. I'm not trying to draw individual leaves at this point. Our little tree representations need to be loose. And so this guy's going to be about 30 feet tall. And then we'll get some nice, bright color in here. But let's approximate. Now, I can't spend, an hour on drawing this perfect flowers. So I'm going to have to approximate. And that's okay. This is quick sketching. What we're practicing is quick captures. Really a beautiful structure. And I think that, I think we can go with that as a quick capture here. And this is, let's see. I've just inked that, so I'm afraid to write on that. Let's see if I can keep my hand up above it. Native to Southwest Asia. Let's see. Off to black nectar pouches. That's kind of cool. Blooms in spring. With two-inch wide flowers in clusters. So these are just the type of notes you want to do when you're out just capturing things, and it's just fun to do. So you could do an accordion like this of your own neighborhood trees. Let's get, pick whatever details you like. I'm going to just do a wash of the magenta. And then I can give it a little bit more red and darkness after the wash dry. And the leaves are really dull, dark green, aren't they? I'm going to get these in here and leave space for flowers. Try to get that pedestal look, but that might be too much detail for something this small. Yeah, I'm just going to have to get blobs. You can't really get detail in something like this size. Want to maintain that open-ish canopy. Pretty dense leaves, but yet you could still see through. So let that dry. If you add a little bit of the burnt sienna to the green mix, you'll get a nice dark brown. Okay. How are we doing? Not bad on time. I have to be really careful because this pinky magenta is still really wet. So if I even touch it, I'm going to get orange, green weirdness. Ta-da. And I can go right in with this dark, dark blue to really show, those in shadow. So we let those dry, and then we're going to come back and hit that with a little yellow, a little more of the magenta to pop the reddish pink. And go in here. Those really sit on those pedestals. Like so. Let's take a look real quick at what happens if we do. I think that's dry enough. I'm gonna experiment with the blue real quick. I think we have time. Still have 4 more species, so. Okay, let's see. This will be kind of fun. It's always scary when you do that. And now you get a really nice bright green. With the tones of the yellow showing through really emphasizes the brightness. So that's going to work well. I will do this one as well, but I'm going to have to darken it after with some of the darker blue to show that. In fact, I could probably drop that in just barely right now. And that, I think that's going to work really well. There, so let that dry, probably do another little bit of wash, but I think it's going to work really well. And this is still damp. I'm going to have to turn it over. I'm going to let that dry while we go on to the next one so I don't kill it. Okay, where are we going next? So we're going to go from southwest, southern, or western China. Now we're going to head even farther west, more north to the famous sweet cherry tree, which is a prunus species. Actually, it's more properly, you could call it avium, prunus avium. I'll show you that in a minute, which is a true cherry native to Western Asia and Eastern Europe. It is deciduous. We all know it for its gorgeous flowers and the cherry tree blossoms. And it's a stone fruit, which is a drupe. And the true cherries are distinguished by having a single winter bud per axil where the leaf comes out, and smooth fruit with no obvious groove. Interesting etymology is that it comes from Old French cerise or Latin cerisum, and it is thought to that cherries have been cultivated in Europe as early as 800 BC, and probably much earlier in what's now China. So really cool. Be fun to sketch this beautiful color and leaves and get the shape in there. Fun. So I would go ahead and call this one the sweet cherry prunus, the one that's native to Western Asia and Eastern Europe, as Prunus avium. And I'm going to do really quick, very small capture here so I can leave room for cherries and maybe have time. I don't know if I'll have time to do the blossom, but you know, our cherry trees, like most of the ones you find, are going to be highly pruned. And I'm remember to leave gaps in your branches and branchlets, because all those white blossoms, how do we depict that? Boy, that's going to be tough. We're going to maybe try to use blue. I don't know. Blue behind it. At this scale, that's probably one of the biggest challenges. So I think what I'll do is, it's like when you're doing snow on spruce trees. I'm drawing the, go ahead and draw clusters of blossoms with your ink or pencil, like so. And we'll throw some blue behind it to emphasize. I tell you, you could spend a lot of time doing this, but I'm going to have to speed it up. Remember, these are quick captures. I'm doing shapes of clusters which follow the branchlets. You know, some of them, depends on how they're pruned, are going to have, you know, much more infill, a lot more blossoms. This guy's nice and scraggly, so I'm going to leave him that way. And then, okay, so what did we remember? Approximately, let's call this guy about, this doesn't look like a very huge one. Let's call this guy about 50 feet. And then we'll do I think the main illustration will be, oh, this gorgeous cherry. And maybe do broken line to emphasize, we're going to want to emphasize maybe a little bit of the shininess. We'll do a twin here. Make this one a little bigger, maybe. Oh, I didn't quite get it. So it would go behind it. Oh, well. Okay. And then that beautiful leaf shape. And it's serrated, but first, so I can make sure I get the shape right, I'm just going to do some kind of dot, dot, dot. Okay. Nice. I don't have time to do the flower, so I'm gonna focus on the fruit. And we want to get in a few notes, which I'll probably wait, maybe I'll have to let something dry, so it'll give me time to do notes. Let's go ahead and use that blue to show our sky and emphasize the white blooms. Haha, this is gonna be a challenge at this scale. Yeah, I think that's working. What I like about this manganese blue is it spreads nicely and it's liftable, so you don't get really hard lines if you mess up. Some of these blues, you lay them down like phthalo, and if you pause for 2 seconds, you've got a hard line. Oops, that wasn't me. Someone's not muted. Okay, I'm going to leave that just so we can show that's white cherry blossoms. Now let's lay down. Again, we want a wash of magenta, and don't forget to leave some white for shine. And then I can build up layers to intensify the colors around the edges. So I want darker on the edges eventually. And try to get approximately the same shine area. You let that dry, and then we come back and keep glazing over and over it and build up the colors, emphasizing that. And I'll probably use a really, really dark blue, the indanthrone, to go around the edges to make them round. Need to make a bright green leaf here. So this kind of limey color. And I can do an underwash of this and then come back with the dark. And I just like that because it gives more depth.
Okay. So you can see by adding another pass of just pure magenta, then we're going to get that lovely cherry color. And grading it, so now I'm wiping my brush. I want to grade it so it's feather it and pull it like that, so there isn't a hard line. Oops. And I don't want, oh, I see, that's too much water. I don't want water, I want almost pure paint, pigment. And now I wiped it off and I'm feathering it. And I'll let that dry. And we'll keep doing that. You'll come back and try not to overwork it, but then we'll get a lovely cherry. And we'll want to write our natural history information there too. But it's time to move on to our next fun species. And this was, okay, so this is a tree I met. I met one of these. I was just gobsmacked. So it's native down here in the southern part of Asia. And take a look at this tree. This is not fake. This is not spray painted. I met one of these trees in a botanical garden in South Africa, and it really does look like this. It is called the rainbow gum. It is a eucalyptus native to the Philippines, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. And it really does have bright orange, purple, green, and blue bark. It's crazy. It's the only eucalypt that lives in rainforests. And I tried to find a good depiction of this and couldn't. It says the branchlets are roughly square in cross-section, often with narrow wings on the corners, which is really interesting. But everybody only has pictures of the crazy bark. And the leaves are in pairs, and you can see the leaves behind the blossom there. But I think, obviously, I think we're all kind of like, we want to draw those crazy colors too. So we're going to do a quick capture of the shape of the tree. You can see that cherry's taking shape nicely there. And as everything dries, you'll come back and add detail, darken some things, maybe draw in a little more detail, color the bark on that. So on our rainbow gum, I'm just going to do a really small depiction, basically almost a stick tree just to show the shape. The one I saw had a really big trunk. So these are pretty wide trunks. And then just branches up. The leaves are, green, eucalypt, kind of waxy-ish. Very typical, what I consider typical eucalypt shape. And what did we say? These are generally how tall? Ooh, big, like a eucalypt, very big. So about, let's call this one 250 feet. Oof. It's a rainforest tree. And then how are we going to best depict that crazy bark? I think, okay, so the other thing this is showing is it often is buttressed. This one is pretty young. It hasn't even quite developed the coloration, but it was very hard to find a picture of an entire tree. This is an old tree, and that's a lot like I saw with buttresses. So you might want to, to add a buttress formation on this, I think. would be a more realistic. But I think maybe just pick some colors that really like, wow, like maybe this. And let's do a zoom in or just a section, right? We can't really do in a huge. So maybe we do a little zoom in here. Bark detail. And what we're going to do, I need to make sure we partition the color. So I'm going to have to lightly sketch in some shapes. Yeah, just, it's just random, but they are kind of these, what would you call them? Kind of amoeba-ish shapes. Because they kind of tend to peel, as you can see, like a eucalypt. And then we'll color in some of these lovely amoebas. It's crazy. Even that's going to be hard to do. So we want to say things like it's the only rainforest eucalypt. And we'll call it multicolored bark. I tried to find a science paper that explained where the pigment, like what makes up this crazy pigment. So I'm going to do the kind of bright green, bluey part. I might throw in more bright orange. Just knock yourself out in terms of what colors you want to do, because it's super fun. So remembering that the best bright green is going to come from laying down a yellow. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do the colors. So this one appears to have like a violet blue background. So I'll probably pick some amoebas to color. This one's going to, I'll put blue on top of it to do the bright green. Just kind of pick some randomly. It was really, I remember drawing this in Africa, and it was really tough to to isolate these colors and reproduce. And you wonder why this evolved. What is the advantage or reason for technicolored bark? I'll be changing those colors. With glazes, I want to make them more orange, and then I'm going to have to go back and try to get that blue background. So here I am going ahead, I'm glazing over a little bit. Oop, I see it wasn't dry, so you lose some of the brightness. It just looks completely fake, doesn't it? I mean, look at that. Crazy color. Any theories on why you think it would evolve this crazy bark? It's in a rainforest. Which is so fascinating.
Minerals in the soil.
Ooh, that's a good theory. I like that.
Camouflage.
Oh, yeah, I can't even like just like
Against predators. I mean, like the arbutus or madrona on the West Coast has a peely bark like that. I don't know the rationale behind that, but maybe it's connected for the
ooh,
same.
that's a good theory. I like that.
I don't know for the colors. I can only think minerals. I mean, why does nature change color? There's a reason. It's usually for procreation or for defense.
Exactly. It's usually sex or defense.
Yeah. And I don't know, when the madrona peels the bark, I've never stood around long enough to find out. Does it replace any bark that it peels? Does it come back? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I wonder if some of it is fire related.
Well, defense against, or like to me, that looks
know.
like a more
Possibly.
flammable.
I know, but I think
It's rainforest usually, arbutus and coastal water kind of thing. Maybe effects against the sea, salt. But this brightly colored tree, it's inland, right? It's not.
well, I'm sure it has some interface with being Papua New Guinea. It probably goes down to the coast.
Oh, yeah, missed that part.
I would have to. So we need to email. Matthias Lannis is there right now.
Oh, cool.
He moved there with his partner, is in the Foreign Service, and so we can ask him to go check.
Well, I just looked
Oh.
up online and it says the colorful striations are due to the fact that the tree doesn't shed all at once. And slowly over time, different layers fall off while other exposed areas have already begun aging.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I didn't quite get the striations. I'm going to have to go in and, I think I can add on top here and make it less. That's a tough one, isn't it? A lot of fun. I could just noodle on this one all day long, but I won't. Oof. I'm gonna stop on that one. I'll have to come back and do that one because I've got 2 more species to do, but that was fun. And all eucalypts shed their bark like this though, so not sure about that color thing. I've got a big eucalyptus in my yard and it sheds exactly like this. Very sheddy. I'm always picking up eucalyptus bark pieces. That's just a great thing we have more research to do. So much to learn. That's what's so fun about doing these. It just sort of gets us started. but now we've got to head north and much farther east, and a very interesting plant. This is a dwarf pine, also called the stone pine. So the Siberian dwarf pine, Pinus pumila, and it's native to northeastern Asia and Japan. Can get quite old, about 300 and rarely 1,000 years old. Wow. And it forms dense thickets, and we were just talking about like madronias, madrones, that thicket growth, and it grows on headlands above seas. So just like we were talking about, it seems like it's filling the same niche. It only gets like 3 to 10 feet high, and the needles are in bundles of 5, or they're needle-like, and the cones are typical of pine species, and the seeds are harvested and dispersed by the spotted nutcracker. So interesting there. I think this is a beautiful. I love the early cone growth there is so beautiful. So that'll be fun to sketch. I did a blork here, so we're just going to have to deal with that. We're going to do just I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to show kind of, I'm going to do something a little different here. We have our little clusters. I'm going to do a little bit of detail here. Right there, they're needle clusters. And then I'll let it grade to less detail in the back, but I want to show more or less. So here's, one little cute little dwarf pine. And then this is, we'll let the watercolor do the work back here with less detail because of the thicket. So we're going to call this only 3 feet. And we'll use the color to emphasize those. Okay. And then that beautiful, I need to move a thing out of the way. The beautiful structure of the cone growth. I'm going to, I just want to get some shapes first. And then I'll add the detail. And I'm just going to work over my board. But see, that's a modified needle there. So you can see how tiny this is. And you see the little bracts fronting the needles. I'm tempted to do a lot more detail, but I have to not. Remember, I just want to capture. Oof, it's hard. It's a little series of overlapping, almost like pineapple bits. And I wonder if you really studied these, if this was in a Fibonacci sequence? Probably. All right, I'll get into the weeds if I do any more. And you could, if you have time, like you could do the cone. And this will give us room to take our notes here. Oops, but we'll just start laying down some color. Come back for the notes. Let's start with a light green. Gonna need a fair amount of it. Oh, and I'm actually gonna, I think, put in a little yellow on the base of these. Ooh, not enough. Very yellow green. I really dirtied up my yellow. Oh, I used too much, my ink hadn't quite set yet, so I'm getting some interesting bleeding. Now, this is all going to be more or less a similar color, and then I'll go in and define it with darker colors, remember. This is sort of the first pass. Whoa, I just, I drew down into the next species. Oh, well. I wasn't paying attention. Oh, my. Okay. Well, I got kind of sucked into my details there and didn't even watch. Oh, that was funny. I haven't done that before. That's actually going to dry a lot lighter than it looks. And I'd probably come back in here and maybe add a tiny bit of detail in here, but not much. And this got muddied up because my ink bled into it. So I've lost some of that really bright. See if I can bring it back at all. What I'm going to have to do is bring it back with glazing. Which right now I'm not doing. I'm actually putting wet in wet. So I'm short on time. And then I want to come back and add the detail of the kind of burnt sienna tips on the little bracts. And then I'm going to lay down this very pale of the cone. And I'm pulling it down because look at how it kind of, see how it turns into a nice pretty grades into that orangey, which is what I intended. When you add magenta and yellow, you get that faint orange. And it looks like I can salvage most of this. And I'm gonna have to let that dry, because we want to come up on our final species, which I've already invaded. So yeah, today was fast. Whew, a lot to do. And this is a fun one. Coming up on the far north. And look at this gorgeous fir tree. This is a Siberian fir and just beautiful. Just love it. And look at that cone. So it's native to the taiga, east of the Volga River, which is in central Russia. And then it's south of the 67th parallel. So latitude 67, sorry, not parallel, in Siberia. So that taiga is massive. So this is one of the keystone species of that particular lifestone. It's about 35 meters tall, so good 150 feet, shade tolerant, very frost hardy to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Whoa. Wow. And it rarely lives over 200 years old because of fungal decay. And it's widely used for plywood and low-cost furniture. And it's also really popular. You can find Siberian fir in your essential oils areas or stores. It's extracted from the leaves, the needles, and used in aromatherapy and perfume industry. So let's look at that purple cone. It's just gorgeous. So we want to draw that. Oops. Okay. Now let me get this situated a little better. So you can, pick what you want to focus on. Now look at the interesting growth of the fur. But first I want to get the shape. Make sure I capture the shape right. So I'm just doing dots, dashes. Looks like it goes kind of more or less, high conical, narrow cone, but the branches point up in these groups. So how do we depict that? I think we're going to end up doing it mostly with our watercolor, because we can't individually draw all these needles, but this looks weird from here, but it's to remind me how I'm going to watercolor this. And as they get farther down, then they start to droop. But not a lot. See, look at that here. They look like they're just more or less like big plates of needle sets, or branchlets, I should call them. Sort of a challenging one. So carry that trunk up a little bit. And then it looks like it got really dense right up here, so we're not going to carry that too far up. So we'll go in and hit those and use the darks to make sure we've got, so you'll put your darks on the underside, leave the upper parts light, so that we have a really nice capture of that growth. And the shapes are just to remind me. And then this really cool cone. Maybe we'll put a cone right here. And look at that wonderful growth. Now, if you have time, obviously, it'd be really fun to go in and get this structure. But I'm not going to have a ton of time. This is a quick capture. But those bracts are interesting. If I can reserve those. Oops, kind of getting a little into the weeds here. This is a closed cone, so it will open up later. It's much more regular than I'm giving it credit for here. Alternating there. I think I got the pattern a little better there. Need to study that pattern to understand the overlap. Oop, didn't quite get that. Mesmerizing, isn't it? And then we want to reserve the bumpy sides. And those bracts, pink, are alternating. Ooh, they sure look like they're like almost a Fibonacci sequence, don't they? It's a spiral. Definitely. If you look here at the bracts, see the spiral? There, 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 there. I bet that would dissect out in the structure in a really interesting way. Cool. Okay. Fun. So we got the essence of it. Is it a perfect botanical drawing? No, that's not what we're trying to do. We got to let that dry because I learned my lesson last time. See, I used a lot of ink, so that's gonna that's gonna be something that if I tried to do my purple now because I'm all excited to do purple, I'll kill it. And I want a really light, bright green because I'm going to be going in and darkening. And the bright green, I want to reserve to show kind of that sunlight on the needles. Try to reserve some open space between, because this isn't, you can see through this. You don't want it to be completely filled up. Going to make a brown by dipping into go ahead, putting some burnt sienna into the green works really nice, quick and easy. And then those darks. Really, oh, almost black hair. Greeny black. And let's see if we can demonstrate. Let's see. I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit. It's a little bit too damp. It'll take another pass of the bright, almost the yellow green. But you can see it taking shape now. Just by hitting the undersides.
Excuse me, Roseanne.
Yeah,
In the center of the brush that you're using now, do you have a hard point?
yeah, this is a really versatile brush. It's a squirrel mop. And I can make quite a point, but it also does a nice flat surface.
Right, because when you were doing the painting the flowers of the dwarf pine, in the flower itself, you were making very, very fine lines.
Yeah, I love this brush. It's the only brush I use. You can lay it on its side and get like that and get the tiniest whisker.
Okay,
It's
that's
really,
incredible. Great,
really
thank
brush.
you.
Let's
Thank
see
you.
if we can get this purple going, and then it's kind of the end. But you can see how this will build up, and
Yeah.
we'll work on a few more. There's only 2 colors in there, which I think I don't really like. I want to throw some more variety, but otherwise I think it's a capture of that particular, the shape. We want to capture this shape. I'm mixing purple now. So this is something we would just carefully go in. I'm going to lighten it. I want to reserve those bracts. Because I need to come back and emphasize the Michelin Man kind of poofy the rose on the cone with some dark purple. So just try to reserve those bracts. I could have used waxed paper. They're kind of yellowy. I might drop a tiny bit of yellow on them. But I might have used waxed paper, or if anybody has Frisket that works, then you don't have to go like I'm doing and go totally around. Yeah, so that's the first pass on the first purple, and then later I can go in, darken up that purple, much darker purple like that, and create some of those shades and shadows, and maybe drop a tiny bit of yellow on those bracts. and then add my natural history information about this school. So these are all going to shape up great. I'm liking that. The ginkgo's nice and bright, and I can make that look even brighter by putting even more dark. Let me just show you. If you really want to emphasize the light, put a much darker color right up against it. And it really starts to pop. Oops, there. See how that really emphasizes the bright? So we'll be going in, fixing that, brightening this. I'll fix my bleed by creating a shadow under it. But again, we'll be able to really enhance this by glazing over. See, just doing a simple, I just grabbed some quinacridone rose, and look at how that just starts popping. So I'll go in and fix that a bit. That's going to be really nice. Glazing is a wonderful thing. Okay, well, let's see. Stop. That was a fun one. And look, it's 12 o'clock. I didn't go over. Last time I went way over, so I was trying really hard to stick with it today. Again, you know, the idea here is to learn to do quick captures of complex subjects, get some natural history, learn a lot. Don't forget to go back and add your natural history notes, like we were doing, your measurements. All the information will be on the website, so you don't have to when I get the recording up, you'll have access to all that. But I like the quick captures. It's going well, and I'll go in and refine some a little bit, but I think overall it worked great. Any questions?
Do you have any idea when the next session will be?
Oh, good question. So I'm thinking it's going to have to be March, because I'm leaving for the Baja Field Arts Boot Camp in just about 2 weeks, and we'll be gone till late February.
Nice.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I think, are there anyone here who's coming on the boot camp?
Yep. I'm planning on being there.
Yay. Oh, yay. Of course. I'm sorry. Like my brain wasn't working. I'm sorry, Marsha. Yay.
No,
Yeah,
all
Marsha,
right.
you there? Yeah, so I'm also going to pop into the chat. Something I always do. I have a little tip jar, and I'll put this on the email I send out with the recording too. If you like these free workshops and have fun, tiny, even the smallest tip is well appreciated. And yeah, we're going to be doing this in Baja. We're going to be doing whales and boojums, and I think we're going to see boojums on the drive over. Fingers crossed, right? That should be super fun. The van driver's going to drive. We're going to drive him or her crazy, because we'll be like, stop, we need to draw the boojums. So that's going to be fun. All right. So yeah, I'll send out, I think I'll pick a date in March and put it in the next one. And what's the next? Where are we going next? I think Australasia. So I think Australia is going to keep us way, there's going to be so many interesting things in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm not sure if I'll put New Zealand in a separate one. That might be in Oceania. Not sure. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
This was a fun one.
Thank
you. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. It's going to be a great
Thank you. You the same.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot. This was great.
Oh, good. It was a fun one. Bye.